Hello everybody, Flashy username here, and welcome to Trainer Tips, the series where we're going to show you how to improve your Pokemon TCG online gameplay. I'm hoping to make this a series, so if you guys enjoy the content, please leave a like, drop a subscription, and let me know ways which you'd like to see the series improve. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Trainer Tip number 1. Number 1. One of the common mistakes that a lot of players make is not switching out their active Pokemon. In this clip here, our opponent evolves their Mareep into a Flaffy and then uses an Ultra Ball to search for an Ampharos. That's another misplay which we'll cover later in the video. But what's incorrect here is they leave that Flaffy up front versus my Lapras, which has an 80 power attack versus their 80 power Flaffy. The attack that our Lapras can do is capable of taking out our opponent's Flaffy. So instead of retreating and putting out something like Smeargle, which was just trade fodder at that point, they could have used the Stunning Likeness, maybe get a supporter activation. Instead of switching, they left their Flaffy in and put it at risk of being counterattacked, which would have set them back significantly in their turn development. They would have lost pretty much everything that they had going for them, because now they'd have a dead Ampharos in their hand, they'd have wasted their Ultra Ball, and a lot of other bad things. So, like, really, when you're in these kind of situations, you should really think out what's not just how can I win from here, but also how can I lose from here. So switching out your active Pokemon sometimes is pretty important because it lets you kind of avoid getting got in these kind of situations. But as we'll see in this what happens to me is I've missed a coin flip, so fortunately our opponent got lucky. But you don't really want to leave it up to a 50-50 chance. You wanna make the tight lines and not leave your game up to fate. You want to make sure that everything that can go right will go right. Number 2. Another really common mistake that new players make is with their energy development. So oftentimes new players will suit up all their energy on one Pokemon on their bench. In this example, we're playing against a Dark Destruction deck, and our opponent's going to start suiting up all the energy on their Zweilous in the back lines. They're going to actually suit up all 3 energies on the Zweilous, but when you're playing this, you don't want to put all the energies that you need for the ultimate attack on your Pokemon, because when it becomes the active Pokemon, you'll be able to put the final energy on it that you need to attack. So during the meantime, you can be developing energies on, say, this person right here could be putting energy on the Houndoom instead of on the Zweilous in this situation. And this actually really backfired very, very poorly for them, because we're going to use a Pokemon catcher here, and we're going to take out all their development with their Zweilous, with our Pokemon catcher, which is pretty tragic for them, to be honest. But that's what they get, because if they didn't develop that energy on the Zweilous, they would have been able to have it on the Houndoom, and Houndoom would have been able to put a counterattack on our Pokemon eventually. And they would have been able to rebuild a little bit quicker from the damage that we did to them, rather than just kind of have to take what we give them, you know? So yeah, so if you're really looking to improve the lines of your play, don't just put all the energies on one basket, kind of spread them out as you're setting up, you know, put all but one that you need. Number 3. Another one of the mistakes that new Pokemon players tend to make when they're playing Pokemon TCG is mis-sequencing their turns. So when you're playing a card game, the way you want to take your actions is typically in the order of most random to least random. So you want to work your way to eliminate randomness. So for example, say you have a Howl, a Timer Ball, and a Nest Ball. You're going to want to sequence those in that order, because Howl is going to draw you 3 random cards, which will get you information, and then Timer Ball, it has the element of randomness with Timer Ball is with the coin flips. You don't know what you're going to get, you might not get anything, and that's going to influence your decision that you make with the Nest Ball, so that way you know if you're going to get something that evolves from your basic Pokemon, or if you're going to get, you don't have anything to get. So really, you want to gather as much information as you can and eliminate randomness before you make your sure thing choices. We're back at the Mareep video. I know you've already seen this clip before, but in this segment, our opponent makes another kind of critical blunder, and they they play the Ultra Ball and get an Ampharos on a turn that they cannot evolve the Ampharos. So sequencing is also important in knowing when to pull the trigger as well. You don't really want to use any of your kind of cards like that until the very last second. In this example, we use an N and shuffle away his hand, which is terrible for him because now not only is the Ampharos back in his deck, but now the Ultra Ball is in his discard pile, so there's less of a chance of him drawing it. So you really want to not only you want to wait until you have as much information as you can until you play your cards. So you want to just use things in the last second possible, basically. I hope that makes sense, and if it doesn't, leave a comment and I'll help you understand it. Number 4. Another mistake that new players make, and it's actually going to be I make this time, is overstocking your bench. If we're watching this clip right now, it's going to be I'm playing the Necrozma laser deck against the Empoleon deck, and right here I end up overstocking my bench too much. I have 2 Necrozmas, so they're very good attackers, but what this is doing is it's preventing me from drawing into, say, a kind of small attacker, maybe like I eventually draw into like a Yungoos or an Ardino. One of those Pokemon would be very useful to switch into if I was to draw the evolution of those. So you really want to have a spot on your bench open if you're not doing anything with it. Sometimes it's really hard to avoid, sometimes your opening hand, it has some very mediocre Pokemon that you're kind of forced to commit to the bench, and you've got to just suit up the rest of the Pokemon there, but you kind of want to try to avoid having redundant copies of Pokemon on your bench. Like our opponent across the board from us, they have, at one point in the game, I think, 2 Piplups and a Prinplup, and there's really no need for having that many Pokemon on your bench. I think they have all 5 Pokemon on their bench, and they don't have an Apom, so if they ever had an Ambipom in their hand, it would just be a dead card. So really having a stocked up bench kind of increases the chances of you drawing into dead cards, so you just kind of always want to have at least 1 or 2 spots in your bench kind of open, unless you've got like the perfect suite for your bench. There are situations where this isn't true, but a lot of players that I see that are new, they kind of just mindlessly stock up their bench, and it can actually be to your detriment than your benefit. There's a lot of cards that you might draw into that would help you get out of a bad situation that you just can't play because your bench is full. Finally, number 5. One of the mistakes that a lot of new Pokemon players make is kind of just burning through their supporters too quickly. A lot of supporters, they do say the words draw a card, but they also tend to have additional effects. For example, Professor Kui's 20 additional damage, it can be the most clutch part of any game, just getting that tiny bit extra reach can not only mean the difference between a prize card, it can be an entire turn taken off, For example, say you have a 70 power attacker up against a 90 health opponent, Professor Kukui would let you take that out in 1 hit, instead of the 2 turns that it would take for you to do it otherwise. So not only did it buy you a prize card, but it also, if you think about it, it got you an extra turn. So it's a lot more valuable to hold on to Professor Kukuis than to burn them in the early game. I see a lot of players kind of burn through their Kukuis like turn 1 or 2, maybe get like an extra 30 damage in, but it's not really worth it to do that. I end up typically holding on to my Kukuis for pretty much as long as I can, even if I've got a pretty mediocre starting hand, because that Kukui in the late game and the mid game can do some real good work, especially if it takes out a Pokemon that your opponent's not really looking to see get taken out at that point. I hope you guys enjoyed today's trainer tips. I hope you guys learned something new, and I really hope you guys found new ways to kind of improve your lines of play. If you did, like I said at the beginning, drop a comment, leave a subscription, let me know what you'd like to see next in this series of trainer tips. I really hope to help encourage people to really up their levels of play when it comes to playing Pokemon TCG. But that's going to be all for me today. Hope you enjoyed. Bye!